There's a specific kind of madness that sets in around the 8th hour of a solo cross-country drive. It's called highway hypnosis. Your brain enters a trance. The road becomes a conveyor belt, and you're just an observer in a metal box, hurtling through a void. But there's a threshold, a point where the road stops being a way to get from point A to point B and starts becoming something else. In the world of the in-between, we call this the 3 a.m. threshold. Pause. If you're still driving at 3 a.m. on the U.S. interstates, you aren't just traveling through space. You're traveling through time that has gone stale. The air outside gets heavier. The radio stations bleed into static, or worse, into broadcasts of talk shows from 1994. And then, you see it. Out of the corner of your eye, past a cluster of dead pines, a glow appears. It's not the harsh LED white of a modern Pilot gas station. It's a soft, buzzing hum of neon, blue, orange, a flickering sign that says, vacancy. You're tired. Your eyelids feel like they're lined with sandpaper. You think, I'll just pull over, just for a few hours. That is your first mistake, because the motel you're looking at, it's not on your GPS. It wasn't there 10 minutes ago, and if you check the records tomorrow, you'll find that the Silver Saddle or the Starlight Rest burned to the ground in 1978. Welcome to the liminal gateway. Why do these places exist? Architects call them non-places, areas designed for transients, motels, airports, service stations. They aren't meant to be lived in. They are transit points. But when a space is defined entirely by people passing through it, it loses its weight in reality. It becomes thin. When you pull into a phantom motel, you've slipped through a thin spot. Notice the silence. At a real motel, you'd hear the hum of a nearby highway, the crickets, maybe the distant bark of a dog. Here, nothing. The air is pressurized. It smells like ozone and old cigarettes, the kind they stopped selling decades ago. You walk toward the front office. The bell on the door rings with a sharp, brassy chime that feels like a physical punch to your eardrums. Behind the counter is a man, or something that remembers what a man looks like. He's wearing a polyester vest. His skin looks like parchment. He doesn't look at your eyes. He looks at your throat. Room 104, he says. He doesn't ask for a credit card. He doesn't ask for ID. He just hands you a heavy plastic key tag. It's warm. It's vibrating. Inside the room, the liminal effect reaches its peak. The carpet is a dizzying pattern of browns and maroons. The TV is a heavy wood-paneled box. You turn it on, expecting the news. Instead, you get a loop of a local weather channel from a town you've never heard of. The current temperature is listed as 0 degrees. The forecast is just the word waiting, scrolling endlessly across the screen. This is where the in-between starts to feed. Most people think ghosts are the danger, but in a phantom motel, the danger is the room itself. These spaces are hungry for permanence because they only exist in the fringes of our reality. They need to anchor themselves. They do that by taking you. Have you ever noticed how, in these stories, the person always mentions the window? In a normal motel, you'd see the parking lot, your car, the road. In a liminal gateway, the window shows you something else. Maybe it's a forest that shouldn't be there. Maybe it's just an endless gray void. Or maybe it's a view of your own childhood bedroom. But everyone in the room has their backs turned to you. Do not look out the window after 3:15 a.m. If the outside notices you watching it, the door behind you will no longer lead to the hallway. It will lead to the same void you're looking at. Let's talk about Marcus. 1998. Marcus was a courier. He knew the roads like the back of his hand. He was driving from Denver to Chicago. He called his wife from a payphone at 2:45 a.m. He told her he was exhausted and found a little place called the Sleepy Willow, just past North Platte. He never arrived in Chicago. The police searched that stretch of I-80 for weeks. There was no Sleepy Willow. There hadn't been a building on that plot of land since a farmhouse was torn down in the Dust Bowl. 6 months later, a hiker found Marcus's car. It was parked in the middle of a field, 3 miles from the nearest road. There were no tire tracks leading to it. The car was locked from the inside. Marcus's keys were in the ignition. His luggage was in the trunk. But Marcus was gone. The only thing they found was a receipt on the dashboard. It was for room 104. The date on the receipt was April 12th, 1998. The time of checkout? Never. Why 3 a.m.? In folklore, it's the witching hour. In science, it's the point of lowest human body temperature and deepest REM sleep. But in the physics of the in-between, 3 a.m. is the cooling point. Reality is like a fabric. During the day, the sheer volume of human observation, billions of eyes watching the world, keeps the fabric tight. We observe the world into being. But at 3 a.m., on a lonely stretch of US 50 or I-10, there is no one watching. The collective consciousness of the world has shifted into sleep. The fabric sags. It gets loose. When the fabric sags, the in-between, a dimension of pure, unformed memory, leaks through. It takes the shape of things it finds in your head. Why a motel? Because you were looking for one. You needed one. The in-between is a predator that mimics your needs to lure you into a space where it can digest your timeline. The VHS grain you see in these found memories isn't an aesthetic choice. It's temporal interference. It's the sound of two different versions of now rubbing against each other. The orange and blue neon? Those are the specific wavelengths of light that the in-between can most easily manifest. They are the colors of a dying star or a dying memory. There are entities that live here. They aren't ghosts of the dead. They are static people. Imagine a Xerox of a Xerox of a person. If you stay at a phantom motel long enough, you start to lose your resolution. Your memories of your home, your name, your favorite food, they get blurry. There are reports from survivors, people who realized something was wrong and fled before dawn. They talk about the staff, the maid who was vacuuming the hallway at 3:30 a.m. One survivor, a trucker named Elias, said he walked past a maid in the hall of a motel in Nevada. He said she was wearing a uniform from the 50s. When he said, "Excuse me," she turned around. She didn't have a face, not in the horror movie way. She just had a blur where her features should be, like a motion-blurred photograph. She was humming a song that Elias recognized as a lullaby his mother sang. But the melody was off. It was missing the notes that made it feel safe. She wasn't a person. She was a placeholder. The motel was trying to look busy. It was trying to look normal. If you find yourself pulling into a parking lot and the vacancy sign is the only light for 50 miles, you need to follow these rules. Your life and your existence in this timeline depends on it. Rule 1. Check the mirrors. When you enter the room, look in the mirror. If your reflection is delayed by even half a second, leave immediately. Do not grab your bags. Just run. the room hasn't finished rendering your presence yet. Rule 2. Do not use the vending machine. The snacks will look familiar, brands you remember from childhood. But if you look closely at the best buy dates, they will be years in the future or years in the past. If you eat the food of the in-between, you become part of the in-between. You'll never feel full again. Rule 3. Set a physical alarm. Do not trust your phone. The digital clock on your screen will eventually start counting backward or displaying symbols you don't recognize. Use a mechanical watch or a wind-up alarm. You must be out of the room before the sun rises. If it rises. Rule 4. Ignore the knocking. Between 3:45 a.m. and 4:15 a.m., someone will knock on your door. They will sound like someone you know. Your mother, your spouse, your best friend. They will say they forgot their key. Do not open the door. The in-between is trying to verify if you're still solid. If you open the door, you're inviting the transition to complete. Rule 5. The exit rule. When you leave, do not look back in the rearview mirror until you are back on the main interstate. If you look back, you might see the motel dissolving into mist, or you might see yourself still standing in the window of room 104, waving goodbye. Let's say you make it out. You drive until the sun is high and the world feels solid again. You stop at a Starbucks. You talk to a barista. You feel safe. But there's a lingering side effect of visiting a liminal gateway. You'll start to notice small changes. The layout of your grocery store is slightly different. Your neighbor has a dog you don't remember him having. You find a key in your pocket. A heavy plastic tag, room 104, that you can't seem to throw away. Every time you try to toss it, you find it back on your nightstand the next morning. You didn't escape entirely. You just brought a piece of the in-between back with you. And the motel? It's still out there. It's waiting for the next tired driver. It's waiting for the next 3 a.m. It's waiting for someone who just wants a place to rest their head. The U.S. interstate system is more than just roads. It's a massive concrete web that holds our reality together. But every web has holes. Every web has gaps where things from the outside can crawl in. The next time you're driving late and the coffee isn't working and your eyes are heavy, look at the signs. If you see a motel that looks a little too perfect, a little too vintage, keep driving. Don't worry about the exhaustion. Don't worry about the gaslight. Just keep your eyes on the road and your foot on the pedal. Because it's better to fall asleep at the wheel of a car in this world than to wake up in a bed in that one. Stay on the road.
There is a town in rural Nebraska. It doesn't appear on any modern GPS. Yet every few years, a traveler reports passing through it. They describe an Americana dream: white picket fences, perfectly manicured lawns, a diner that smells of fresh apple pie. But there is a problem. No one has lived there since the 1970s. The houses are shells. The people in the windows? Just reflections of a time that refused to leave. Welcome to the phenomenon of the non-places. Spaces in the American Midwest that exist in the cracks of reality. Geographies that appear on state maps from 40 years ago, but are ghost towns on today's satellite imagery. They are locations that census data claims have been abandoned for decades, yet they keep appearing in the rearview mirrors of unsuspecting drivers. Today, we are venturing into the heart of the hollowed reality. We are looking at the stories, the evidence, and the terrifying possibility that some places in America weren't just abandoned, they were suspended. To understand the hollowed reality, we must understand the geography of the Midwest. It is a landscape defined by repeating patterns, endless rows of corn, long stretches of asphalt, clusters of buildings that signal a town. In the mid-20th century, thousands of these towns thrived. Then the interstate highway system arrived. Bypasses were built. Local economies withered. Residents moved to urban centers. That is the story of the abandoned town. But there is a difference between a town that is abandoned and a town that is absent. A non-place is characterized by specific anomalies. The map error. They appear on printed road maps from the 50s and 60s. Modern GPS systems report no data or redirect travelers miles away. The temporal mismatch. Witnesses describe the architecture, the advertisements, and the fauna as belonging to a specific era, the Eisenhower-era Midwest. The static environment. Despite reports of freshly painted houses or warm coffee, there is no evidence of local government, tax records, or human infrastructure maintenance. When we look at the data, or the lack thereof, we are forced to confront a chilling possibility. Are these travelers witnessing a historical loop? Or are they experiencing a psychological fracture induced by the isolation of the American plains? The most persistent element in these reports is the diner. In 2018, a trucker named Elias Thorne took a wrong turn. Service road near the Nebraska/Kansas border. He found a town named Oakhaven, a name that does not exist in any county record. Thorne described the town. Perfectly clean. The grass mowed to a precise height. He felt compelled to stop. The diner, a small building, a neon sign that buzzed with an erratic insect-like frequency. I walked in. It smelled like coffee, strong, burnt, fresh. I sat at the counter, waiting for someone to take my order. I heard the kitchen doors swing open. I turned. There was no one there, just the lingering warmth of a cup of coffee. It was still steaming. I looked outside. The car I had driven in on was gone. The street was silent. Not empty, silent, like the world was holding its breath. Thorne left his wallet on the counter. He drove until he hit a major highway. He never found the road back to Oakhaven. What makes this story, and others like it, so unsettling? It is not the supernatural. It is the familiarity. We all have a mental image of the ideal American town. We recognize the aesthetic, the pastel colors, the clean sidewalks, the sense of security. When that image is transposed onto a place where no one should be, it creates a cognitive dissonance, the uncanny. What is the hollowed reality? Psychologists suggest it is a form of collective hysteria, highway hypnosis, sensory deprivation of the plains. When you drive for 8 hours through a landscape that never changes, the brain fills in the gaps. It reaches back into the cultural consciousness, pulls out archetypes of Americana, keeps the mind occupied. But that theory fails to explain the physical markers. How do multiple unrelated witnesses, travelers who have never met, describe the same specific details? Some theorists argue these towns are remnants of simulation theory. If the world is a construct, these towns are rendering errors, pockets of data that were supposed to be deleted when the simulation updated. Instead, they were cached in the system. They are the ghost files of our reality. Others point to liminal space. These towns occupy the threshold between the past and the present. They are not dead. They are waiting for a reality that has moved on. They are stage sets left behind after the play has ended. Look at the satellite imagery for the coordinates provided by travelers. You find nothing. Or rather, you find scars. Zoom in on high-resolution maps of rural Nebraska. You see outlines. Faint, ghostly grids in the dirt where houses once stood. A topographical map of a memory. The structures are gone. The humans are long buried or moved away. Yet the pattern remains. Yet we have the anomalous archives. Letters from travelers dating back to the 1930s, describing these same towns. The descriptions haven't changed in nearly a century. Why keep the paint fresh on a house where no one lives? Why does the coffee stay warm in a town that doesn't exist? The answer might be simple. The town isn't maintained by people. It's maintained by the expectation of it. The town exists because the idea of the town is too powerful to be erased. We have collectively projected our nostalgia for a simpler, safer America onto these empty patches of land. In doing so, we have kept them alive in a state of suspended animation. There is a danger in looking too closely at these places. Travelers who return from these non-places report a lingering sense of dissatisfaction with their own reality. They find the real world, with its noise, its messiness, its decay, to be somehow less authentic than the perfection they saw in the empty towns. They become obsessed with finding their way back. They drive the same roads, they look for the same wrong turns, hoping to find that diner, that warm coffee, that silence. They realize too late the truth. The town isn't a place for the living, it's a place for the ideal. And the ideal, by definition, can never be inhabited. As we wrap up our investigation into the towns that time forgot to delete, we are left with more questions than answers. Are these places real? Are they ghosts? Or are they simply mirrors, held up to our own desperate need to find a version of America that never existed? Maybe the truth is simpler. The world is vast. We have only mapped a fraction of it. Perhaps there are corners of this country that haven't been claimed by the present, places where the past still echoes in the wind. But next time you find yourself on a long, dark stretch of highway in the Midwest, you see a sign for a town that your GPS doesn't recognize, a town that looks just a little too perfect, a little too quiet. My advice is simple: keep driving. Because once you enter a place that doesn't exist, you might find that you start to disappear along with it.
If you like the story, please subscribe.